In this video, we talk about Adventureland by Haba. Haba is a famous publisher of games for very young children, 3, 4, 5-year-olds. And it seems to me that, I don't know, maybe they have decided to try to keep the same customers as they grow old, because this is a game for kids that are a little older. Now, the box says 10-year old and up. Very conservative estimate, like so many times these labels on the box are. My 6-year-old Amelia can definitely play this game with a little bit of help. I think that also even my 4-year-old would be able to understand. It's about moving pieces on a board in a straight line and collecting resources, and there are moments in which you have to add some numbers together. Very, very simple. Still, I would say the difference between other games that Haba has that can be played by 4 or 5-year-old is that for some of those games, that's pretty much the expiration date, as late as the kids can play them before they lose interest. Here is when it starts. So I can definitely see kids a little older, between 6, 7, all the way to 10, 12, playing it. As for adults, yeah, if you are a very casual gamer, or there are some people that are not strong gamers, occasional gamers, they're very casual gamers that are hanging out with you, then this could be a way to entertain them, because it's a game that has some thinking to do. It has some meat there, but very lean meat, absolutely very lean, and definitely a non-gamer would be able to play. The theme is fantasy adventuring. Move your heroic meeples around the board, collect treasures, collect resources, fight monsters. One detail about the box. Finally, enough with the Haba yellow. I don't know if you've seen other game boxes by Haba. It's very easy to tell them from other games when they're on the shelf. Maybe that is the point. They have that signature color, which was its bright yellow. Very easy to tell where they are, but not particularly pleasant. Now we have a box that, even just starting from the way it looks, well, it's higher quality, or at least I would say is more tasteful. It really looks nice, and components inside the box also are particularly nice too. Adventureland. Let's see how it plays. The board of the game is a mounted board, really nice, nice colors, nice sense of place, represents various places in this fantasy land in which our adventurers will go around fighting against monsters, collecting magic items, recruiting companions, and so on and so forth. The map, as you see, is divided in a grid of squares that are marked by letters and numbers so that each square can be easily identified. The players start by placing their meeples in that area up there in the top left corner of the board. And then, well, people will alternate drawing cards that will populate the board by revealing things that are found on the board and then moving on the board. So when it is your turn, you draw 2 cards on the stack and you simply populate the board accordingly. The card will tell you what you found and where that item needs to be placed. For example, this is an herb, then you draw an herb tile from the stockpile and you place it, in this case, in B1. And then we have a companion that goes in G10. There you go. After you populate, oh, the companions are really nice, shiny silver companions. You don't see them very well, maybe you don't see them very well, but in real life it's fairly easy to spot them on the board. Other things that you may find, the gold. The gold is pretty interesting. This one goes in H6, goes here. Gold is only to be found in the river, and when you add a new gold to the board, you also move this guy. The first time you put the guy on the board, the first gold that you find, and later you move it. That guy is the water sprite, moves back and forth around the river, killing people that he encounters on the way. So when you add a new gold after the first, the sprite moves along the river to protect the new gold, and if it encounters one of your adventurers on the way, then the adventurer is removed. Then we have, I wanted to show you the magic swords, or just the swords. Here we go. We got a sword in knight 2, then again we have a pile, we draw the swords. The swords may have numbers associated with them. The higher the number, the better the sword. So we found a sword in knight 2, and we're gonna put it up there. So this is the basic idea, that your turn starts with you drawing 2 cards. Oh, actually there's one more thing which is very important, which is the monster. When you get one of these monsters that come out of the mist or the fog, you draw a tile from this stack that has different monsters. The monsters have a numerical value indicating their strength and number of victory points they're worth. So when you draw a monster, then you simply draw a tile from this deck here, and you place the monster in the corresponding space. After you drew 2 cards and added whatever it is that you need to add to the board, it is time for you to move your adventurers. You have 2 moves, so you can move one of your adventurers twice or 2 of your adventurers once. The adventurers can move any number of spaces in one direction without reversing direction, and also they can only move down and right, or I guess south and east. So once you get here, for example, you can never go back here or up there. So there's an interesting spatial puzzle here, because you're trying to hedge your bets to make sure that you're able to collect resources that may pop up in that area. As you can see, the green areas are all up there, and that's where you will find the herbs. Then you have the mountains where you find the swords, the cities where you find companions. So if you're getting a companion there, well, then you're committed, because you'll be able only to act in this area of the board. If you get an herb here, then you're committed, because all that happens here is not available to you anymore. So you can move one of your guys by one, in one direction, or again, 1 move or 2 moves. If you stop on something that you want, then you get it. In this case, for example, I pick up that gold. If I had stopped, oh, this should be face up. If I stop, say, here, I go here, and then I go here. If I stop on a companion, then I simply add the companion to my party, and the next time that I move together with the companion. If I get on something, for example the herb, then I add it to my pool, and so on and so forth. So something that will happen at some point is that players will want to fight monsters. It's also possible that you're forced to fight monsters, because you're simply sitting there in an area where monsters may appear, and somebody draws a card that places a monster there. When you have to fight a monster, you need to collect enough strength points to match or exceed their strength number. There are various sources of points. Your adventure counts as 1. If you have companions, each companion counts as another strength point. So I already have 3 there. Hooray! Also, you can spend swords. Each number that you see on the sword corresponds to a die that you can roll up to 3. So I can have up to 3 dice, in which case I roll them, ba-doom, and I add the total together, and that's added to my base strength given by my adventurer companion. And in this case would be more than enough to kill that monster. Suppose that is not enough, then I can spend gold. I can spend a piece of gold to get a reroll, or I can of a die, or I can spend a piece of gold to simply add +1 to my strength. Also herbs and magic herbs. Herbs have numbers on them, and again I can spend them to add their power, their strength, to the strength of my attack. When I put together all of my sources of strength, if I match or exceed the strength number of the monster, then I catch the monster, I destroy the monster, and I get the corresponding number of victory points. Otherwise, my hero and the companions with the hero are removed from the game. The game continues like this until there are no more swords and no more companions in the stockpile. So when they have all been placed on the board, the game is over, and then, well, you decide who the winner is. And what are the victory conditions? Well, that is interesting. They may change. There are 3 scenarios that will give you different victory conditions. And this scenario here, for example, you score the defeated foe creatures, you score companions and gold, but you don't score herbs or sword tiles. They're still good if to achieve your objectives, but they don't give you points. Here, you get points for victory, for defeating monsters, for large groups of companions, for gold, and also points for herbs and tiles that did not remember score in the previous scenario. And then here we have a slight variant of the previous ones, in which we get points for having a presence in the cities at the end of the game. And also, again, tiles and gold and monsters and all those things are valuable, but not herbs and sword tiles. So basically, herbs and swords in some cases are only a means to scoring, and some of the times also they are part of the scoring themselves. At the end of the game, total your points based on the victory conditions that you have decided, and the player with the highest total is the winner of the game. A game that is very simple, exceedingly simple probably for many of you out there, my viewers who are into hobby gaming. Way too simple for many of you, and with just not enough reasons to be interested in what happens. To me, a game that definitely is for very casual gamers, or most importantly for families, adults that are playing with kids between 5 and 12-year-olds. And I happen to be in that bracket, so I'm particularly pleased that I have it. But I see how the target for this game may be somewhat narrow, because if you're just with your adult friends, there are probably other games with a similar theme that give you more complexity, that give you more to think about. And also, if you same for casual games, and of course the market for games that you can play with your kids is also pretty vast. Although, however, very often games that are marketed for families are only for kids, and the adult has to suffer playing them. This is honestly a family game because I enjoyed playing it. And definitely kids enjoy it too. It really is transgenerational, as long as the older party in the transaction is okay with a game that is so simple, so linear. I like the fact that the game does give you to think, because you don't want to overcommit, or say you don't want to commit your guys too early and send them to one side of the board, at the bottom of the board, and then there isn't much that they can do. But at the same time, so it's important that you do that you manage, that you time things well. But at the same time, the scarcity is not one that makes the design unforgiving, because you have a good number of meeples. Gosh, yes, I sent that one too early, but I'm not kicked out of the game because one of my guys is virtually out of the game. And maybe actually was able to collect a good number of companions that scores me points, and so at the end that was a good investment. Pretty much what I'm trying to say is that the game has interesting decisions that pay off if you make the right decision at the right time, but it is not a game that will destroy you entirely if you do not make the right decision. It is a forgiving game, and precisely because of this, it is a game that works particularly well with kids, so they don't have anxiety, they don't have tension, they don't start feeling like they want to cry when they realize that they made a bad move. There are just so many other things that they can do. And yet, again, things going to full circle, it pays off to actually be able to time things well, to sequence things well, to place your people in the right position. So it's a very simple game with very simple decisions, but interesting enough if you're playing it with kids. And I also like the fact that there is a variable scoring system that is nice. There is a luck element, which is good, so that you don't get too obsessed and you'll take the game too seriously, try to predict everything. And so there is a little element, of course, of pushing your luck, because if you keep hanging out on the river, that's great because you're getting a lot of gold, but of course, if the water sprite then moves around as you're there, then you lose resources. Going to a monster and burning a lot of resources there is safe. Using fewer, well, if it goes well, then you have more resources for the next monster. But of course, there is the problem of what if it doesn't go well. So there is a luck element there, which is, however, I would say, under the control of the players. That is like something I like very much in games. You can choose how much luck you want to face in most cases. yes, there are cases you're sitting there and a monster pops right there where you are. But even in that case, actually, you know where they are. It is entirely possible, if you never want any of your people to be in danger, never to put them on the river or never to put them in areas where the fog monsters will arrive. So it is entirely possible to remove the danger that may come from a random attack. But of course, precisely because of this, then you're playing very cautiously, and then there are sections of the board that you will not be able to harvest resources from. So I like the fact that you can choose how much luck you want to have to face. The more luck you accept, the better your chances of collecting resources. So things balance themselves out very well. But again, I think it also, again, works well with children that not always handle luck well. In this case, you may have the adult that will be a little more brave, and the kid that plays more conservatively enjoys collecting things. Kids like to get stuff, so again, games where you collect stuff is something that they find particularly enjoyable. So Adventureland, not a groundbreaking fantasy game. Speaking about fantasy, the theme is there somewhat if you use a little bit of imagination. It's a Euro game at the end of the day, so the theme is there and not there. If you do a little bit of effort and see it in it, well, guess what? You will see it. It's gonna be there. Again, it's not particularly detailed. It's not entirely thematic. Why the heck can they turn their back and walk just a couple of steps in the direction that they came from? But some of the theme is there, and again, kids will have still the joy, the fun of collecting stuff, collecting items, defeating monsters, etc., etc., etc. While you, the adult, will enjoy seeing them having fun with the game, and also will enjoy the linear, clean mechanics that hopefully will keep you entertained enough to enjoy the game, while of course at the same time not being particularly immersive or demanding. Adventureland, not for everybody, not for the heavy gamer, not probably for a group of even just mid-core hobby gamers, but if your kids are on the age of 5 to 10, 12, well, then this is an enjoyable game, or if you want to play it with very casual gamers, or people that usually do not game, the game is attractive. If you're playing it with kids or people that do not play too many games, then this may be the most thematic game that they ever played. Oh my gosh, I only play checkers and stuff like that before. This is amazing. It's like I feel like I'm there. So maybe you can trick them into thinking that the game is more thematic than it is, or I should say, probably there is enough theme in here for that. So for a fairly specific audience, which I happen to be a member of because I am a parent with young kids, for a very specific audience, but for that audience, a good game.